The Vikings take on the 49ers, and that's going to be a 4:35 Eastern kickoff in San Francisco. The Niners are the 7-point favorite, total at 44.5. We saw a half a point fade of San Francisco and movement downward on the total. The Niners open 7.5 down to -7. Total open 45.5 down to 44 and a hook. 53% of the consensus are leaning toward Minnesota. 52% shaded toward the under. And right now the Vikings are plus 265 on the money line. Now if you like the Vikings in this matchup here, just keep in mind they rank in the bottom 10 in passing, bottom 10 in offensive time of possession. They failed to cover the point spread against the likes of Denver and Washington this year. They also rank 21st in pass yards allowed on the road, and they're in the bottom 10 in defensive time of possession on the road. Now, San Francisco on the other side, arguably the best team in this whole tournament. They're 5-2 against the spread in their last 7. They have successful point spread covers over the likes of Seattle, New Orleans, Baltimore, and Green Bay this year. They rank in the top 10 in scoring, top 3 in rushing. Raheem Mostert and Matt Breida, they're averaging over 5.1 yards per carry apiece. They also have a combined 9 rushing touchdowns as well. And, of course, Tevin Coleman, he's got 6 rushing touchdowns on the ground as well. Now, San Francisco ranks in the top 5 in offensive time of possession, top 10 in yards per play on average at home. Of course, Jimmy G, he's thrown for nearly 4,000 yards on the year, 27 touchdown passes. And George Kittle, the difference maker at tight end, he's got over 1,000 yards receiving, 5 touchdown catches. He's averaging 75 yards receiving a game. A couple more things to add about this San Francisco squad. They rank in the top 10 in points allowed. They're also in the top 3 in pass yards allowed as well. We're looking at Richard Sherman, who is a staple in the NFL. Of course, one of the better defensive secondary players in the league. He's got 3 interceptions on the year, 11 pass breakups, and of course, not a lot of times is the ball thrown to his side. Now, Eric Armstead, he's got 10 sacks on the year, 2 forced fumbles. The San Fran squad ranks in the top 3 in yards allowed per play. They're also in the top 10 in defensive time of possession at home. You can't forget about Fred Warner, who's got 118 tackles on the year, 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 3 forced fumbles. Now, when it comes to the injury report, just keep an eye on D. Ford, Jaquiski Tart, and Quan Alexander. These guys are listed as questionable for Saturday's action. But regardless, if you're betting the total, 4 out of San Fran's last 4 games all got over the number. They're also 80% to the over in their last 10. Meanwhile, 6 out of Minnesota's last 9 got over the number themselves. They're also 5-4 to the over when traveling. So with all that said and done, I'm going to lean toward the home chalk in this one. Give me San Francisco -7 and the over 44.5 in that game. Before we go ahead and move on, just want to take a quick timeout and welcome you to the show. Got some lines and personal leans out for our NFL Divisional playoff round. But before we dive into some more of that, I just want to quickly remind you to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we do daily premium sports picks on that website, beginning at just $1.99 per month. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of great members on that site, made a lot of great friends, and it's really cool to see the camaraderie amongst the different patrons amongst each other. It's a very inviting group, a very gentlemanly group, a polite group, and check it out. If you don't, no big deal. I certainly appreciate you watching me here on YouTube. But if you want a little bit more insight on your picks for the divisional round, feel free to check it out. The link for that site is in the description section below. You can also check out my current record for free right there on the homepage. Once again, that is patreon.com/BrockPage. But of course, once again, no pressure to check that out. I like having you here on YouTube, and that is most important. And speaking of YouTube, let's go ahead and dive into some more free lines and personal leans right here on YouTube. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And on deck, we've got the Saturday night game. I'm talking about the Titans taking on the Ravens, 8:15 Eastern kickoff in Baltimore. The Ravens are the 9.5-point favorite, total at 47. Now, we're seeing pretty good two-way action with regard to the sides. I'm not seeing a whole lot of movement there as of yet. Now, I did see a 2-point move downward on the total. So, once again, Baltimore's minus 9.5, total open 49, down to 47. 54% are leaning Tennessee, 53% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Titans are plus 355 on the money line. Now, the Titans have been covering machines as of late. They're 70% against the spread in their last 10 games. They have successful covers over the likes of New England, Houston, and Kansas City this year. They also rank the top 10 in scoring, top 3 in rushing. No surprises there. Derrick Henry, he's got over 1,600 yards on the ground this year, 17 rushing touchdowns. And receiving-wise, not a lot of people talk about this guy, but A.J. Brown, he's got over 1,000 yards receiving on the year and 8 touchdown receptions. This Tennessee squad ranks in the top 5 in offensive yards per play, top 5 in points allowed on the road as well. Definitely stepping up on the defensive side of things. Kevin Byard, 5 interceptions, 9 PBUs, 84 tackles on the year. And, of course, Logan Ryan, he's got 4 interceptions, 18 PBUs, and 4 forced fumbles. Now, keep an eye on the other side on Baltimore. Earl Thomas and Mark Ingram are listed as questionable. Those guys are a little bit banged up. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw them play, but keep an eye on them. You never know come playoff time. Crazier things have happened. Once again, Earl Thomas and Mark Ingram questionable for this Saturday's action. This Baltimore squad, as good as they've been, I mean, they're impressive. Don't get me wrong. These guys are awesome. Just keep in mind, they're covering the point spread just 50% of their games at home this year. So I'm not saying who's going to win outright. I'm just specifically talking about the spread. They've covered just 50% of their games at home this year. They also rank in the bottom 10 in pass yards. I mean, that's just the fact. Lamar's been awesome this year, but he's been a running threat. And they rank in the bottom 10 in pass yards, and they're also in the bottom 3 in passing yards at home. So obviously that run sets up that pass. Definitely is the way it's working in Baltimore. But the way the numbers look, that passing attack really isn't the massive threat. It's Lamar being able to run and move. Now Baltimore, they're also struggling to cover the point spread at home. They are just 3 and 4 against the spread in their last 7 as the official home favorite. All right, so keep that in mind. Baltimore, like I said, they're a great team. Should end up winning this game, but when it comes to that massive point spread, I don't know. That's a big number. I don't think they're going to be able to cover that number. But regardless, 2 out of Baltimore's last 3 games did get over the total. They're also 5 and 4 to the over in their last 9. Meanwhile, Tennessee on the other side, they're 80% to the over in their last 10. A lot of overs between these two teams. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and lean Tennessee plus 10 and the over 47 in that game. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Sunday, and we're going to start with the AFC game, 3:05 Eastern kickoff. That is Houston taking on Kansas City, and like I said, 3:05 Eastern kickoff at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs are the 9.5-point favorite as well, totals at 51. Now, we did see a 1.5-point move toward Kansas City. We saw a 2-point move upward on the total as well. KC opened as the 8-point favorite, up to minus 9.5. Total open 49, up to 51. 51% of the consensus are leaning toward Kansas City. 58% shaded toward the over. And right now the Texans are plus 355 on the money line. Now Houston's covered just 2 out of their last 5 games. They're also covering just 40% of their games in their last 10. They failed to cover the point spread against the likes of Tampa Bay, Denver, Indianapolis, and Oakland this year. They rank at the bottom 3 in pass yards allowed, bottom 10 in rush yards allowed. Really struggling on the defensive side of things. They're also just 8-9 against the spread overall for the year. Now, they've suffered outright losses to the likes of Carolina, Indianapolis, and Denver this year. Now, I'm not talking about the point spread. I'm talking about outright losses to these teams. Houston also ranks in the bottom 3 in yards allowed per play, bottom 3 in pass yards allowed on the road. And keep in mind, they're a little bit dinged up as Joseph, Fuller, and Akins are all listed as questionable for Sunday's action. Now, Kansas City on the other side, they always seem to get hot at the right time. They're right in the middle of a 6-game winning streak. They're also 6-0 against the spread in those 6 games. Just an absolute cash cow if you've been backing this Kansas City squad. No surprises here. They rank in the top 5 in scoring, top 5 in passing. Patty Mahomes, he's got over 4,000 yards through the air. He's also averaging 304 yards passing per game as well. Keep in mind, Mahomes was out for a little bit of a stretch there with an injury. And regardless, he's thrown for 26 touchdown passes. His favorite target, Travis Kelce, he's got over 1,200 yards receiving on the year, 5 touchdown receptions. Kansas City also ranks in the top 3 in yards per play, top 5 in home scoring, and top 10 in home passing. Now, Tyreek Hill, he's got 7 touchdown catches on the year, 860 yards. He's averaging 15 yards per reception. Of course, he's a utility guy. You can use him on a jet sweep. You can use him pretty much doing anything out of the Wildcat. I mean, this guy pretty much does it all. Now, Mecole Hardman, he's averaging 21 yards per reception this year. He's also got 6 touchdown catches as well. Kansas City has marquee wins over the likes of New England, Minnesota, and Baltimore. They rank in the top 10 in points allowed, top 10 in pass yards allowed. I mean, a lot of people, they're not talking about this Kansas City defense. Like I said, top 10 in points allowed, top 10 in pass yards allowed. And, of course, the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, this guy is playing out of his mind. 4 interceptions on the year, 12 PBUs, which, of course, a PBU is a pass breakup. And, of course, Chris Jones. Not a lot of people talk about Chris Jones. He's got 9 sacks on the year, 9.5 tackles for loss, and 4 pass breakups from the line of scrimmage. Now, Claiborne, Xavier Williams, Wiley, and Thornhill, they're all listed as questionable for this Sunday's action. Keep an eye on Thornhill, certainly an impact player in this secondary for Kansas City. But regardless, we're looking at a KC squad who went 5-1 to the under in their last 6. Meanwhile, Houston, 70% to the under in their last 10. A lot of unders between these two squads. I'm going to go ahead and purchase the hook, buy it down, and lean Kansas City -9 and the under 51 in that game. All right, next and final matchup for the show, it is going to be Seattle taking on Green Bay, 6:40 Eastern kickoff at Lambeau Field. The Packers are the 4-point favorite at home, total at 46.5. We saw a half a point move toward Green Bay and movement upward on the total. The Packers open 3.5 up to -4. Total open 46 up to 46 and a hook. 61% are leaning Seattle, 54% shaded toward the under. And right now the Seahawks are +170 on the money line. Now Seattle is really banged up. They got a whole scroll of guys on the injury report. A couple names of importance. We're looking at Brown, Ayupati, Ansah, Potich, and Turner. They're all listed as questionable for this Sunday's action. But regardless, Seattle has really persevered through that adversity. They've been used to playing banged up. They kind of patch it up and get the job done with anybody. Just kind of plug and play. They're 6-3 against the spread in their last 9. So regardless, they're making people money, especially in that second half of the season. They rank in the top 10 in scoring. They have successful point spread covers over the likes of Minnesota, San Francisco, and Philadelphia twice. They actually beat Philadelphia by identical scores, 17-9 in both of those games, and they were both on the road at Lincoln Financial Field. Now, Seattle ranks in the top 10 in yards per play. Russell Wilson, he's thrown for over 4,400 yards on the year, 31 touchdown passes. Tyler Lockett, he's got over 1,000 yards receiving. He's got 8 touchdown catches as well. And, of course, we can't forget about Zeus Adonis, just the Greek god that is DK Metcalf. This guy looks like he was chiseled out of stone. He's got over 1,000 yards receiving, 8 touchdown catches. He obviously was the X factor in last week's wild card matchup between the Seahawks and the Eagles. But once again, DK Metcalf, over 1,000 yards receiving, 8 touchdown receptions. It's amazing to think the amount of teams that passed up on this guy, and it's amazing to think the kind of players that went before him that aren't even employed now. But anyway, Seattle, they rank in the top 10 in offensive time of possession. They do a good job just controlling the game. They also rank in the top 10 in yards per play on the road. Green Bay, on the other side, they failed to cover the point spread in 2 out of their last 4. They also failed to cover against the likes of Detroit, Washington, and the Chargers this year. They rank the bottom 10 in rush yards allowed, bottom 10 in yards allowed per play at home. As good as he is, I don't trust Aaron Rodgers where his head is. I trust his ability, his talent, but him and his coach, they're not good. They're not in a good place. I know it seems like it, but they're not. Aaron doesn't respect them. Anyway, Green Bay 4-0 to the under in their last 4, 7-1 to the under in their last 8. Seattle 5-2 to the under in their last 7. They're also 5-4 to the under on the road. So with all that said and done, I don't know. I don't even think Green Bay is going to win it outright. But I definitely don't think they're going to cover the 4. So with all that said and done, I'm going to lean Seattle on the road +4 and the under 46.5 in that game. All right, guys, let's go ahead and dive into our quick pick recap. Once again, brought to you by patreon.com/Brock Page, where we do daily premium sports picks on that website, starting at just $1.99 per month. I like Seattle +4, under 46.5. Kansas City -9, under 51. Tennessee +10, over 47. And last but certainly not least, I like San Francisco -7 in the over 44.5 in that game.